In the forgotten village of Kiwanda, nestled between whispering baobab trees and the sighing winds of the Mbali plains, lived a young woman named Nyafa. She came from a sacred bloodline known as the Wanjali, guardians chosen by fate to watch over a magical calabash that had long held the balance between man and spirit. This role passed strictly from parent to firstborn, and each heir not only received the duty, but also an unspoken bond with the calabash itself. But Nyafa, unaware of the heavy legacy she carried, was unknowingly shackled by an ancient curse. One awakened the day the calabash mysteriously vanished, plunging her family into shadows of sorrow. Misfortunes followed her like a second shadow. Odd events clung to her days like dust on bare feet. At times despair would steal her mind away, and she would wander familiar roads only to forget her way back, her eyes blank, her spirit adrift. Her millet and groundnuts shriveled in the earth, no matter how tenderly she nurtured them. And soon, with the soil refusing to yield, she turned to small chores around the village, just to fill her father's cooking pot. Once, her life had been filled with the joy of watching yam vines curl toward the sun, but now all that remained was survival. Nyafa was gentle, with eyes that held the quiet of early dawn and a heart that throbbed in rhythm with the wind, birds, and the pulse of the soil. Her mother had crossed into the spirit world as Nyafa entered this one, and her father, Alimo, had been crippled by an illness that left him brittle like dry reeds. She cared for him with tireless grace cooking. Bitter leaf stew, sweeping the compound clean, pressing damp claws to his brow, yet his bones only seemed to grow colder, his breath weaker. The village healers, clad in cowrie-draped robes, shook their heads with helplessness, offering bundles of herbs whose cost gnawed at Nyafa's modest earnings. Most villagers spoke in hushed tones when she passed, though she feigned deafness. The murmurs scraped at her soul like sharp stones. They spoke of a curse buried deep in her bloodline, of a sacred object lost, and a balance shattered. But Nyafa knew none of this. To her, it all sounded like fearful tales twisted by drought and hunger. The whole village of Kiwanda suffered. Granaries were bare, goats bore stillborn kids, and mango trees stood like skeletal sentinels. Every soul had their sorrow. It felt as though the land itself mourned. And in her quiet moments, even Nyafa found herself wondering, could the stories be true? But she would always shake the doubt away, focusing instead on keeping her father alive for one more day. The whispers, though, were ever near reminders of a legacy she did not understand. Meanwhile, on the hill that kissed the horizon, King Jamari, the ruler of Kiwanda, sat heavy with worry. He was a kind leader with a voice like drum thunder and eyes that still held warmth. One morning he rose and declared across the village, "Square, whoever brings forth the sacred calabash shall be granted one wish, no matter how grand." His wife, Queen Nalo, was furious. She stormed into the great hut, her anklets jingling with each furious step. "Have you taken leave of your senses?" she demanded, her face darkened with disbelief. Jamari, seated on his carved stool of Iroko wood, looked up with calm eyes. "What foolishness have I spoken, Nalo?" he asked. "The decree," she hissed. "You declared, in front of the whole village, that anyone who returns the calabash may ask anything. Do you realize what storms your words may invite? Someone might ask for your crown, your throne." Her voice trembled with a mix of fear and fury, but Jamari simply raised his shoulders in calm defiance. "My only desire is to awaken hope," he said. "What harm lies in that?" Nalo stepped closer, her brow furrowed, her fingers clenched. "You risk everything. What if a heart, drunk with ambition, finds it? Will you simply hand them the kingdom? Will you abandon your people to chaos?" she pleaded. But Jamari's gaze did not falter. "I do not fear who claims the calabash," he said. "I care only for the healing of our land. Look around us, our granaries rot, our children cry from empty bellies. If giving up my throne ends this suffering, then so be it. What use is a king without people to lead? At those words, Queen Nilo's anger melted like dew under the morning sun. You are right, she whispered. Our people must live. Our son, Prince Enobi, shall join the search. May the spirits walk beside him. From that day, the search began. Warriors combed the forest of Uyuji, farmers dug their fields deeper, children peeked behind termite hills. Some searched in solitude, some in brotherhood, some clutched family hands as they prayed the earth would reveal its secret. Dreams swelled in every heart. Some pictured themselves commanding fire and wind, others longed for harvests heavy with cassava and maize. Eyes lit up with possibility. But quietly, competition grew like weeds. Each person hoped they alone would be chosen, that their dream would be granted. No one knew what the calabash truly looked like. They only believed they'd feel it when they saw it. Except for Nyafa. Only she had seen it, not with her eyes, but in her dreams. The king's decree stirred something ancient inside her. At 17, she began to hear soft murmurs, not from people, but from something deeper. The calabash, sensing her spirit's gentleness and her birthright's echo, had begun to whisper, "Come, child of my keeper. I have waited long enough." But Nyafa did not recognize the voice that called to her. Each time the whispers echoed in her mind, she brushed them off like passing winds, thinking they were just dreams fading from memory. Long ago, in the soft warmth of childhood, she had dreamt of a glowing calabash that shimmered like fireflies at dusk, beckoning her through mist and moonlight. But those dreams had vanished, swallowed by the harshness of adult life, and she dismissed them as stories conjured by a child's wild mind. Still, somewhere deep in her spirit, the memory of the calabash glimmered like a coal that refused to die out. Now, however, something within her stirred with new purpose. Nyafa began to believe that those long-lost dreams hid the secret to the calabash's location, and that belief burned stronger with each passing day. She made a bold choice, one that made her chest feel heavy and her legs uncertain. She would join the search. That night, her steps were slow as she approached her father's room. Each footstep thudded with the weight of goodbye. She sat beside Alumo's bed, his breath shallow, his face gaunt. "Baba," she said, her voice a soft tremor in the still air. "I need to speak with you. I've made a decision. I know this will be hard for both of us, but I must follow this path laid before me. I am going to look for the calabash." Alumo opened his eyes, hollow but aware, and nodded slowly. "I'm glad, my daughter," he murmured. "It may be our only hope." Deep in his heart, he knew the truth of the curse in the calabash, but the weight of his failing body kept him from speaking more. "I will return to you, Baba," she began, but Alumo interrupted with sudden urgency. "Before you go, look under my bed. There is something I need you to find." Nyafa frowned. "Baba, I clean your room every day. If anything were there, I would have seen it," she replied. But Alumo insisted, and his voice, though weak, carried an unfamiliar strength. "You will find a dream charm," he whispered. Nyafa didn't know what a dream charm looked like, nor why her father, always silent about the past, would have hidden one. Still, with her heart thudding, she reached for the lantern on the table, knelt, and leaned under the bed. Her fingers swept across the cool floor, then something. A tiny hook, a wooden flap. She lifted it, revealing a small secret compartment. Inside was a delicate ring wrapped in a net of thin threads, decorated with bright beads and pieces of cowrie shell. This was the dream charm. As her hand touched it, something stirred. Her fingers tightened around the charm, and suddenly, her mind was no longer in the room. A vision took her. She saw nimble hands weaving strands of shimmering thread into the frame of a calabash. The threads glowed with an inner light, as if filled with starlight. The hands belonged to a woman, but her face was cloaked in shadows. The weaver moved with quiet grace, her fingers dancing as they spun magic into form. Then, like thunder cracking through a dream, Nyapha snapped back into the room, gasping. Her eyes wide, heart racing, mind whirling. Who was that woman? Why was she crafting the calabash? Was it the very one the king sought? And what did it have to do with Nyapha? What did it mean? She turned to her father for answers, but his eyes had closed again, and his body had fallen back into restless sleep. With her questions unanswered, Nyapha knew one thing for certain: she had to find the truth. Holding the dream charm tightly, she stepped quietly out of her father's hut and made her way across the darkening compound toward her neighbor's home. She could not leave Aliamo alone. As she neared the clay-walled home of Mama Dika, she saw the old woman fiddling with the lock on her door, preparing to go out. "Mama Dika," Nyapha called softly, hurrying forward. "Good evening, child," the woman replied, peering over her shoulder. "Is everything all right?" Nyapha took a breath. "Please, Ma. I need your help. I am going to search for the calabash, but I cannot leave Baba by himself. Will you watch over him for me?" Mama Dika paused, concern creasing her brow. "Nyapha, even our strongest warriors have searched and returned with empty hands and broken spirits. What makes you believe you can find it?" she asked gently, her voice tinged with worry. "The king's promise has driven many to madness. Some have lost their way in the woods. Others have not come back at all." Her warning was thick with love and fear, but Nyapha's eyes shone with unwavering resolve. "I must try, Mama," she said. "This is not about glory. I do not seek gold or crowns. I only want one thing: to see my father walk again, to see his pain lifted. The king said he would grant any wish. That is my wish: to heal him." Mama Dika studied the girl's face, reading the fire behind her calm words. Nyapha did not speak of the dreams, or the vision, or the voice in the charm, though she held close a quiet storm within her. After a long silence, Mama Dika gave a slow nod. "I will care for him. But you must promise me something." "Anything, Ma," Nyapha said. "Promise me you will be careful. Go with your eyes open and your heart steady." "I will," Nyapha whispered, her chest tight with emotion. "At first light I'll set out. Then may the ancestors walk with you," Mama Dika said, touching her shoulder. Nyapha bowed her head in gratitude. "Thank you, Ma. I am forever grateful." Mama Dika offered a reassuring smile as Nyapha turned and walked back to her hut, her heart pounding with both fear and determination. The rest of the day she spent preparing quietly, moving like someone who knew her world was about to change. She gathered a few simple things she would need: calabash gourds filled with water, roasted yams and dried mango, ground nuts wrapped in banana leaves, some charcoal, a sharp blade, the dream charm, a gourd lamp filled with oil, bundles of garlic, dried roots, and healing herbs. Though she had no idea where her feet would carry her first, she knew deep within that standing still was no longer an option. That night, after eating her last home-cooked meal, Nyapha lay down on her reed mat. As sleep came, it swept her into a world not made of mud and sorrow, but of spirit and sky. She stood on a great plain that stretched into the horizon, its grass whispering secrets in the breeze. Before her, a figure began to emerge from the haze. As the figure drew near, she realized it was an old woman, her step steady, her face soft and weathered like river clay. Her voice, when she spoke, was warm and smooth like honeyed tea. "Nyapha, child of the trees," she said, "I am here to help you walk the road that calls your name. You seek the sacred calabash, but do you even know where to begin?" Nyapha shook her head slowly, humbled. The woman smiled. "Go to the forest of Ebelo. Listen to the elders of the woods. Their voices are not lost, only quiet. They will point the way." As the woman's final words faded into the wind, so too did the dream. Nyapha awoke with a sharp breath. Her heart raced not with fear, but with wild, pulsing purpose. She remembered the Tales, Ebulo, the forest. Said to lie at the far edge of Kiwanda, was a place feared by all. Some said the paths inside shifted like river currents, trapping even the cleverest hunters. Others spoke of beasts with eyes like burning coals. But still, the dream's message clung to her like a second skin. At dawn, Niafa cleaned her father's hut one final time. She placed his food and medicine within easy reach, rearranged the bedroll, and set the gourd lamp beside him. Then she stood beside Alumo. His chest rose and fell slowly. She took his worn hand into hers. "Goodbye for now, Baba," she whispered. "I promise to return with the calabash that will end our suffering." She held his hand a moment longer, tears prickling the edge of her eyes, then slipped quietly out. As she walked through the village, past sleeping compounds and dying gardens, she whispered prayers into the early morning air, prayers for Mama Dika's watchful care, prayers for courage, prayers that her path would not end in despair. When Niafa reached the border of the forest, she paused. The sight before her made her breath hitch. Ebelo was more monstrous than she imagined. The trees formed a ceiling of shadow. Their arms tangled in chaotic patterns, their roots twisted. Like sleeping snakes. She wanted to turn back, to rush into her father's arms and never leave. But she remembered the dream, the woman's voice, and the ache in her chest refused to let her retreat. So with trembling breath and fire in her belly, she stepped between the trees. Immediately, the world changed. Sounds grew louder, the creak of bark, the rustle of unseen wings. She pressed forward with alert steps. The knife stayed in her hand, and she moved carefully, marking stones with charcoal and rubbing her skin with herbs to mask her scent. Each night, she slept under dense branches, her dream charm cradled against her chest. For 4 long days, she wandered the twisting wild, chasing every rustle, every glimmer of hope, yet finding nothing. Her legs grew weary. Her spirit dimmed. She used her blade not only to carve paths, but to kill a serpent that slithered too close. When hunger gnawed at her belly, she chewed dried mango and nuts. When thirst cracked her throat, she drank from narrow streams. But the deeper she went, the more lost she felt. On the 4th day, Niafa sank onto a mossy rock. Her limbs ached, her hope flickered like a candle in wind. "I cannot do this," she muttered to the trees. "This forest wants me to fail." The shadows offered no comfort. Her heart felt heavy, her mind full of doubt. Then, as silence enveloped her, a memory surged up, the old woman's words, "Seek out the ancient trees. Listen to their whispers." Like a spark reigniting flame, those words brought light to her soul. She rose to her feet and looked around with new eyes. She noticed now that some trees stood different, older, with roots like twisted arms and bark scarred by age. "These," she thought, "are the elders." She began following them, a quiet joy awakening in her step. Then she saw an enormous tree unlike any other, with a trunk coiled like rope and leaves so broad they blocked the sky. Something pulled her toward it. As she neared, a whisper slipped through the air like a breeze brushing skin. "Follow." "The river," it said. Niafa froze and turned. No one was there. Her breath caught. Then it dawned on her, the tree was speaking. She quivered, unsure whether to run or kneel, but her heart chose reverence. She bowed deeply. The tree spoke again. Clearer this time. "Follow the river. It is the gentlest way." Her eyes filled with tears, not of fear, but of certainty. "Thank you," she whispered. She searched and soon found the stream, winding like a silver ribbon through the forest. She stepped onto its bank, her spirit no longer burdened, her path finally unfolding before her. The gentle murmur of the stream became Niafa's silent companion as she pressed on, its rhythmic flow calming the pounding of her heart. The soft scent of forest blossom, sweet marula, wild orchids, and hibiscus filled the air and brought a sense of comfort that wrapped around her like a mother's shawl. She walked until a distant roar of tumbling water reached her ears. Step by step, the sound swelled until she found its source, a towering waterfall crashing down from moss-covered stones. Neafa stood before it, her breath catching in her chest. With cautious courage, she stepped into the cool waters, letting its chill wash over her legs as she pushed forward, expecting to emerge on the other side and continue along the stream's path. But instead, she stumbled into darkness, a hidden cave carved behind a curtain of water. The noise of the waterfall dimmed, and silence took over. Neafa's heart beat faster, though she had grown used to the forest learning to recognize which leaves to chew and which to avoid. This place was alien, full of unseen dangers. She fumbled to light her oil lantern, and its warm glow cast long, flickering shadows across the stone walls. As she moved deeper into the cave, her eyes caught strange etchings carved into the stone. Curiosity overtook fear, and she paused to study them. The markings were not random. They told a tale, a history whispered by stone. They spoke of the village of Kiwanda's earliest days, and the powerful woman who birthed it from earth and spirit. Her name was Nyanda, a revered enchantress who had chosen the land for its sacred harmony. Nyanda had crafted the enchanted calabash with threads woven from Ebelo's heart, filling it with blessings of growth and balance. Her descendants, marked by blood and bond, became the Wanjali, the guardians of the calabash entrusted to protect its magic. For generations, kings used the calabash with wisdom, drawing strength from the guardian's connection to channel prosperity across the land. When kings acted with honor, the bond with the guardian deepened and the magic flowed strong. But when selfishness crept in, the tie weakened and the calabash's power dimmed. Then came a king whose greed eclipsed duty. He demanded the calabash, multiply riches for those who paid, turning its sacred gift into profit. The guardian of that age pleaded with him, warning of spiritual imbalance, but he silenced her with rage. He ordered her execution and locked away her kin. On the day of her death, the village watched, complicit in their silence, many of them clutching items they hoped would soon be multiplied. As her spirit cried out, the skies darkened. Thunder boomed, and a storm broke upon Kiwanda with fury. Rain and wind tore through the village, claiming lives and flattening homes. The entire royal lineage was wiped out save for one spared soul, a young boy hidden beneath a fruiting baobab. The sacred calabash vanished in the chaos, swallowed by the rage of the elements, and with its disappearance, a curse settled over the land and the bloodline of the guardians. The villagers, racked with guilt, scoured every corner for the calabash. Ebola was searched time and again, but the forest played tricks on every hunter who entered. Its paths twisted, its trees whispered false directions, and none could reach its heart. Over time, Kiwanda was rebuilt, but it never truly recovered. Its days of abundance faded into memory, and tales of the magical calabash became fireside stories told to restless children under starlit skies. Neafa's eyes widened as she read the carvings, each line a revelation, each image a forgotten truth. Her mind brimmed with questions. What exactly was the curse? Why was the forest now guiding her? What did her visions mean? But the walls held no more answers, only deeper mysteries. Pushing through the cave's thick silence, she walked until light returned. Emerging from the cave's mouth, she shielded her eyes as golden sunlight bathed her face. A warm breeze lifted her spirits, and ahead, the forest stretched once more lush, ancient, alive. The stream still ran beside her, and Neafa gently extinguished her lantern, slipping it into her pack. With renewed resolve, she continued along the bank, the stream whispering secrets she could almost understand. The path was far from over. Ebelo had only begun to reveal its truths. Her footsteps carried her to another massive tree, one that dwarfed the others around it. Its roots curled around a small, still pool that glimmered under the sun. Moss grew thick around its base, and wildflowers bloomed in a circle, humming with bees and the soft buzz of life. The pool had a strange music of its own, a melody without voice, like a memory from the earth itself. As Neafa reached toward the water's surface, its once glassy calm shattered at her touch, and a vision seized her. In this vision, a voice whispered like wind weaving through tall grass, "This is the curse. Kiwanda shall no longer bloom. The land once rich with bounty shall dry and crack. The soil shall forget the gift of birth. The fruits shall forget how to ripen, and the curse of empty harvests shall hang like smoke over the land. To the Wanjali your crops will shrink and die. The seeds you once buried with hope will rot in silence. Your bloodline shall carry the burden of your failure. In that burden, the memory of the calabash's truth shall fade, and your bond to it shall unravel. You will walk the land as strangers to your own purpose. In the prime of life, sickness shall haunt your bones, and grief shall bury your strength. This curse will drag through time, a wound upon each generation, until the calabash is returned and the soul of the village reborn." As the voice faded, a parade of faces moved before Neafa, blurred at first, then clearer. One face after another locked eyes with her. A knowing passed through her chest. These were her ancestors. And then she saw Alimo, her father, followed by her own face staring back at her with fierce clarity. She gasped aloud, the power of the realization crashing through her like thunder. "I am a Wanjali," Neafa cried. "I understand now. The curse, the sickness, the dreams, it all makes sense." Her eyes widened, overwhelmed by the truth she had unknowingly carried all her life. "This is why our crops die. Why Baba grows weaker with every sunrise." His words echo now. "Find the calabash, it is our only hope." He knew, but he couldn't bear to tell me. The weight of the generations settled on her shoulders, but with it came resolve. "I will break this curse," she declared. She dusted off her tunic and stood, prepared to move forward, when a pale light suddenly emerged, slipping between thick shrubs to reveal a narrow, hidden path. Neafa felt the pull instantly. The calabash was calling her. Without a second thought, she followed. The path twisted through thorns and clusters of wild figs, and she used her blade to slice a way forward. Soon she came to a clearing ringed by stones so old they seemed part of the earth itself. The trees there were strange, taller, older, more alive than anything she had seen. At the center stood a flat boulder, and upon it sat the calabash. Her heart leapt. It glowed faintly, as if breathing. But as she stepped into the clearing, the trees stirred. With groans and creaks, their trunks coiled and twisted, forming an impenetrable wall that swallowed the calabash from view. Neafa tried to slice through, but the branches moved faster, writhing like serpents. She tried to climb, but thorns erupted along the bark. Her blade dropped to her side. These trees were not ordinary. They were the calabash's final guardians, protectors against the greedy. Understanding this, Neafa sank to her knees and bowed low. "Ancient ones," she said softly, voice quivering. "I am Neafa, child of the Wanjali. I bow my spirit before your ancient power. I seek forgiveness for the village's betrayal. We turned from balance, from humility, and we were swallowed by pride. I come not to possess, but to restore. My hands are clean, my heart is clear. I ask not for glory, only a chance to heal what was broken. Let me pass, so that I may complete what my ancestors began." As she finished, the clearing fell silent. Then the trees began to shift. Their groans softened. The thorns receded. Slowly, gracefully, they unfurled, revealing the calabash once more. Neafa rose to her feet. "Thank you," she whispered. She stepped forward, her fingers trembling as she touched the calabash. At once, a new vision enveloped her. Her ancestors surrounded her in a circle of golden light, smiling with pride and joy. Behind them stood a restored Kiwanda, teeming with life, children laughing, crops blooming, and rivers flowing like blessings. The vision faded, but the peace it brought lingered in her chest. The calabash now rested firmly in her grasp, and her spirit felt light yet full, as if she held not an object but the breath of generations. The forest had changed too, no longer loomed like a threat. It had softened. Birds sang from the branches, and small animals peeked from their burrows without fear. The path before her was open, welcoming her return. As she emerged from the tree line, a figure appeared in the distance. It was Prince Inobi, the king's son, weary from weeks of searching. When his eyes landed on the calabash in her hands, his expression darkened. "I have walked every trail, searched every cave, lost good warriors to this quest, and yet it is you, a lone woman, who brings it forth." His voice quivered with disbelief and frustration. "Men trusted me. My mother believed in me. I swore I would return with the calabash. And now it rests in your hands? Is this the will of fate?" He stepped closer, eyes narrowed, fists clenched. Nyafa's breath caught. Her grip tightened around the calabash's handle, knuckles white. Fear rippled through her, but she did not back away. She held her ground, heart pounding. She had walked through darkness. She had heard the voice of the past. She had faced the curse. And she would not let it slip away now, not for anything.